That's why we're having a terrible increase in bankruptcies. The only way you can prevent that, and that's what they did for a long time, because if the government would go into debt, sell a government bond to the Federal Reserve, and they'd create the money to buy that as a bookkeeping entry, which they do. In fact, it says so right in the letter here, and I'll just show you that. It says, a private commercial bank would just receive the extra reserve from the Fed by borrowing reserves, for example. So see, they get it there. Also, it says here someplace, the Fed has several ways of controlling the total amount of reserves in the system.
In what ways?
Well, I'll go on ahead and read. One has already been mentioned, namely the fact that Federal Reserve banks can lend reserve to the private commercial banks. To do this, the Federal Reserve simply makes a new entry on its book showing that the borrowing bank has more dollars in its account with the Federal Reserve. And so see, that's how when the Federal Reserve puts money into circulation, they buy a government bond. And when they buy it, they then write a check on an account that doesn't exist, and they pay the bond dealer. When he puts that check into his checking account, then that check goes back to the Federal Reserve to be paid, and they just mark it paid and create a bookkeeping entry to that guy's account in the bank. That gives the bank new reserves that now they can loan $6 to 1 on. Now they can control this that way, or they control it by raising and lowering the interest rates. You remember just last Thursday they said...
And who has authority to do that?
The Federal Reserve Board.
The board or the chairman?
The board.
The board.
I think there's 12 guys that sits on the board. Don't hold you that exactly. I can look it up. The board makes those decisions. Now you heard just last week where the Fed put a bunch of new money into circulation?
Yes.
Okay, I called my congressman up and asked him just exactly how they do that.
It'd be interesting.
Well, I thought if they were going to put new money in, if they were just standing out in the corner handing it out, I wanted to get on that corner. Oh, he said, Mr. Dale, they didn't really put any money into circulation. What they did was lower the discount rate, so it made it cheaper for everybody to borrow, and they assume people will come in and borrow more money. But see, I had a conversation with David Dahl, who's an economist at the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis, a while back, and he said, well, we don't really understand that there's a problem out there. The banks have plenty of money to loan, it's just that people don't want to seem to borrow. And I said, well, now you suppose the fact that you've already got $23 trillion of outstanding debt, that a lot of these people are having problems trying to qualify for a loan? And it got so quiet that after a while I had to ask him, are you still there? We was on a phone conversation. Because see, they had thought about that maybe there's a point in time when people can't borrow any longer.
My name is Paul Mel. I'm a small business owner from Fargo, North Dakota. Now, as I've always understood it, as a small business owner, the object of my business is to make money and at the same time provide goods and services for my customers so that we both benefit. Now, as I do this, I give them things and they give me money.
Federal Reserve notes.
Right. Now, isn't it true that the more of these that they give me, the better that I'm doing for myself, for my family, and for my country?
That's what I always thought back when I had my ranch. I worked very hard, just like you, to try to make money, until one day it dawned on me, wait a minute. Federal Reserve notes are notes and are evidence of debt. And in reality, all you're getting is more evidence of somebody else's debt every time you get paid.
Well, if that's true, then that's not true just for me. That's true for every small business owner out there.
And every large business owner, small and large, and the government. Paul, what I didn't realize when I was in business, and what until just recently, and what most of us haven't realized, that over the last several years, 25, 40, they have made a complete switch on our money from a wealth money or an evidence of wealth to an evidence of debt. See, before, when my dad was a child, his dad gave him gold coins to go buy things with. Okay, now when we had gold and silver money, that was money that was brought into circulation as a wealth because you went and dug it out of the ground and you took it to the mint and had it turned into coinage free of charge and you went out and spent it. So now if you'd have done business, you'd have been paid with an evidence of wealth. But they've completely switched that when they put in the Federal Reserve System, and now they've changed our money to where it all comes into circulation as a debt to the people. And that's why that the more business you do and the more product you sell, in reality, the more debt you have to create in order to be the money there to buy it.
So put simply, what you're saying is, every time that I collect one of these from one of my customers, somebody, somewhere has to create a debt.
Yes, before that bill can exist, or even before they can write you a check to pay you, someone has to go in debt. Someone has to go to the bank and borrow money, either the government, a corporation, individual, or someone has to go borrow some money before that money can exist for you to be paid. And so in reality, the more we produce, the more debt that has to be produced in order for us to buy and sell it. Completely opposite of what we all believe. And that's why we have such economic hardships in this country.
If this is the truth, there's really only one path that this can lead to.
Yes, absolutely bankruptcy. Because see, what we, again, most of us don't stop to consider is that when money is created as a loan,